Hey Adam, thank you so much for that kind introduction, and definitely completely agree that these 2 days have been fascinating. It's so much knowledge, so much learning. So hopefully this last session would be the one that we take with us for a long time. So this is a panel session, as Adam has just said. It's about the blockchain. It's about the advantages, the challenges, and you name it. And I am so delighted that I've been accompanied by a true set of professionals represented through major energy enterprises such as ExxonMobil and Chevron, together with very, very competent probably from the supplier side on the wood, and the panel has been bolstered by the presence of Gino Valverde from the Blockchain for Energy, representing the industry-wide initiatives of blockchain. So I'm really, really delighted to have all of us in these sessions. But before we go to actually go to the nitty-gritty detail of this session, I'd like to take a little bit of a helicopter view the about the blockchain itself and it's relevant for our dear energy industry, or specifically oil and gas. Even though blockchain is an emerging technology that offers a faster and non-contentious automated process to eliminate the need for manual data entry and processing, it has a tremendous potential when it comes to automation and improved data management. It can be an enabling technology to remove inefficiencies in our industry. Oil and gas is an asset heavy industry. There is a lot of room for improvement when it comes to efficiency gain and also actually streamlining in many of the back office processes. Uh, one among many examples, one example that comes out as a application for the blockchain in oil and gas is the smart contracts for supply chains in oil and gas. I think topics like this will be heavily discussed into the meetings. But however, there are some challenges. This is an emerging technology. And as we progress from pilot, from proof of concepts to more for the scaling phase of this technology, we started to see challenges coming out within the integration with the legacy IT system that some of us are sitting on. Integration about how we're going to integrate this technology with our digital platforms such as SAP, or the instrumentation needs, and how about the cultural changes, the way we working, we are engaging with the supply chain over decades. And also it comes not only from the operator side, from the externality, from our supply chain, how the suppliers are embracing this technology. There can be a role of data liberations and how AI could play actually make this process even better, this interaction between supplier and the operator. And not but least, data privacy and cybersecurity is key here. So I'm so delighted to go into the panel discussion now. So the way we would like to do is I will ask my distinguished panelists, starting with Jason, just to say something who you are, what is your passion for blockchain, and why you really think this is a potential game changer for oil and gas industry in general. Jason.
Thanks, Abul. So I work with ExxonMobil. I'm an enterprise architect for our financial space. And the way that I got involved with blockchain was about 5 years ago. Our VP of IT had asked me to go and learn more about blockchain and what it could mean for our industry and for our company. And so for the last 5 years, I've been learning and trying to socialize and evangelize blockchain within our company and in community groups such as the Oil and Gas Blockchain Conference, as well as the Blockchain for Energy Consortium. And for me, what I see here, I look at everything first with a financial lens. I've came out of our controllers organization. I've supported over the years our tax groups, our treasury group, audit. And blockchain scratches a lot of the itch for many of these groups to provide a very transparent and auditable backbone for transactions. And so that's something that gets me really excited in the financial space. But when we back up and look at the 50,000 foot level, I think there's a lot that we can do in track and trace for our industry. So to me, there's a lot of value in there. And I will say that um, uh, what we're learning as we move forward with the Blockchain for Energy Consortium is that other oil companies have these same needs. Our upstream business is a business that historically has had access to a lot of cash because there's a lot of oil flowing. And other companies like ours have thrown people and spreadsheets at problems. We save the cutting edge technology for finding the oil and extracting it, not for doing the more back office type activities. So when we enter into a period like I think most of us have been in the last couple of years, it's important for us to be as efficient as possible. And blockchain brings a lot of that to the table for us.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. So the Raquel, please.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for this opportunity to the future oil and gas team. Really appreciate the opportunity to talk about a topic like blockchain. My name is Raquel Clement, and I've been in the industry for 24 years now. I'm a mechanical engineer. Um, I've been working in downstream, upstream, and midstream, and my passion for the digital innovation started when I was a production engineer. Working in the fields and having to develop a lot of um, reporting about my wells, reporting to the government, reporting to the different entities that regulate us internally in Chevron. So I started looking for solutions, and I have moved a lot around the company in different directions. I have been in LNG commercialization, but I have been in the fields. I have been in the operations in lubricants plants, and I had done Lean Sigma work. I was the Lean Sigma manager for upstream, and I was looking for other type of solutions. And that's when I started hearing about this notion of blockchain and the intrinsically aspects of blockchain. Help and how they help us the governance of the data. Data is the new value, is the new asset, is the new gold, and but the governance of the data, the ownership of the data is becoming more challenging. And how do we manage data? Blockchain offers so many solutions around that, and pairing that with our engineer on our requirements on the field, the amount of data that we generally use and need to process for operating our fields is it was an equation that I was trying to find some solutions. In blockchain, as Jason was mentioning, scratches several of the itches that we have in the data management space. It's aspects like immutability, aspects like transparency, building digital trust between parties that doesn't know each other is a concept that they're inherently we need to harness that those possibilities and bring them to our industry to improve our industry, not only in the back end processes but also in the field and communications. And now in this new era we are in this world where we are being asked for transparency. We are being asked for more transparency, showing our things, but we need to do it safe. And blockchain offers some of the aspects that we want to study and evaluate and see how we can use that blockchain technology and blockchain like solutions to be more transparent in these new requirements that are posed to our industry. Right now, my position in Chevron is I'm the digital product line manager for operations, and we cover over 1,000 applications, and that goes from the wellhead all the way to our shipping operations. And in this position, I have the opportunity to see how we develop our digital strategies and including technologies like blockchain, like artificial intelligence, machine learning, but combining all of them in IoT, mostly IoT, and how we combine all there to manage and find efficiencies in our fields. And I also have the honor right now to be the chairperson of the board of the Blockchain for Energy. I'm part of the team who founded the Blockchain for Energy before, when it was the all see blockchain for oil and gas, and now it transformed into the blockchain for energy. So I have the pleasure to work with Gino too in that group, and with Rebecca Hoffman. So thank you for having us today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Raquel. I think we will come back some of the topics what Jason and Raquel has mentioned in a more, let's put it, a deep dive. So, Philip, to you, please introduce yourself and your passion for blockchain.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here as well. My name is Philip Black. I'm the Global Emerging Solutions Lead at Wood. My journey has been to look across different verticals and different technologies to see where the combination of these technologies can really accelerate the digital transformation that we're all experiencing, especially as we need to do more with less, as well as look at new types of energy. I think my interest in blockchain stems from the time I spent with air quality monitoring and environmental reporting. Uh, in that space, it's not just about what is the value of the that the instrument it's reading, but it's about the quality of the data. It's about, is the instrument working correctly? I see a lot of situations, especially with oil and gas. My background's automation and control, looking into the data, struggling with data quality issues, and thinking what can be done to really help increase the quality of data that is we're making decisions based off of. Especially with AI, we're seeing more and more need for data, but really, what's the incentive for all the different systems, all the different organizations to really uh, do thorough quality assurance, quality checks on not just the data for environmental reporting, but for all the data is crucial to the processes. We've got a lot of instrumentation, we've got a lot of new IoT sensors coming on board, but we really have to have a system in which the quality of the data is completely transparent. And blockchain is a technology that is an underlying technology for storing and recording data, but really incentivizing the increase in quality of the data. And then with you have the better data, and you have smart contracts which allow you to actually go through and make decisions very frequently, very rapidly, and with that are much easier to audit than, say, just going through an Excel spreadsheet, going through a Pi historian, whatever system you might have, and looking through that to try to track down the source of issues. When it's all stored in one place, it's immutable. You have much more power to make decisions based off that data. That's my experience.
Philip, I mean, already with the introduction, the transparency about the data is been repeatedly resonated here, and it's so important when we're becoming a data-driven, and that is actually a pivotal step to address our climate change imperatives. So I think we're gonna have some amazing time as we move into the last not but the least. Gino, please, if I pronounce your name correctly, first of all, please introduce yourself and tell us your passion about blockchain and how actually blockchain for energy actually is working for the rest of the on behalf of the rest of the industry.
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you for chairing this panel, and thank you to Future Oil and Gas for the invitation. And good afternoon to everybody who's participating and attending the conference. I couldn't agree more with the comments that have been made by my co-panelists, and as Abul mentions, we'll certainly do a deep dive into all of that. My name is Gino Valverde. Good afternoon again. I am the COO and CFO of Blockchain for Energy. Blockchain for Energy is a consortium for the energy industry. Our goal is to bring us all of our industry participants together to develop industry solutions. We're really very focused on fostering a new way of working, a digital way of working, a shared way of working that we believe is what the times are calling all of us towards, and that it will really deliver some of my co-panelists mentioned this value and this efficiency for all of our organizations. And so as we start thinking about industry solutions and working together and collaborating, blockchain and blockchain related technologies are a very natural fit. So there's a lot of components. A lot of the technical ones have been mentioned already, but for blockchain for energy, really for us, we're about building what we refer to as the ecosystem. We try to, again, bring all of the participants together, create shared solutions or shared process maps or process derivations, I guess I could say, and try to then implement those in real, working, tangible, testable blockchain solutions. So blockchain for me is a labor of love. I have been in the blockchain space for about 6+ years now. I am a serial technology junkie, and I've never been excited about any technology the way I've been excited about blockchain. Blockchain is the ultimate team sport, and we look very much forward here at Blockchain for Energy to continuing our efforts within our consortium of members and to bring blockchain to all of our organizations, and to, as the years and months go by, reaching out to other companies in our industry, other key players in that ecosystem, and encouraging them to join our consortium, to participate in our solutions and take this journey with us, because at the heart of it, the solutions that we put forward, if they don't work for the better part of the industry, then they are not the solutions that we need. We are increasingly interlinked. We are increasingly reliant on each other for some shared successes. At our conference in September, there was a term thrown around a bit that was co-opetition, right? And this sort of co-opetition is increasingly the order of the day in our industry. So again, thank you for the invitation. Extremely excited to be in the middle of this conversation with my co-panelists, and look forward to the questions that Abul and all of you have for us here today.
Fantastic. I think this is a very good setup for us. Time is flying, but we're going to deep dive here. I'm going to start with Jason first. I've come to know your passions about the organizational aspect, or let's say more like the internal view, as you're coming from a major oil and gas company like Exxon. Could you kindly elaborate your kind of overarching view, how the track and trace molecules, these jargons, this idea has been implementing, and where blockchain fits into that? Jason.
Sure, you bet. Thanks. So the one thing that's become clear, I come from the financial background, both working at controllers and now supporting them in the IT function for 22 years. And one of the things about track and trace that excites me the most is being able to take your value chain and recording it to a common backbone like blockchain that's accessible by all the players in that value chain, whether they're inside your company or your external partners. And from an accounting and auditability standpoint and a transparency standpoint, it allows all of us to see the data real time, and see the same data and make sure that we're all making decisions off of that data. So today in the oil and gas industry, and I'll focus right now on the upstream business, we do a lot of data capture for different parts of the overall value chain. And to me, by doing that, what we're doing is we're segmenting the data, and we're having to share and reshare and reconcile that data between us and our partners and our customers. There's a lot of data handling that goes on in our business, either directly or using third-party service providers like an Oildex or an EnergyLink or other EDI type service providers. So my idea, and what I see a real imperative for in both our upstream and downstream and chemicals organizations, is we need to start thinking as an industry about capturing our molecules at the source. This really is about, in the upstream business, as the wells are producing, capturing those oil molecules to a common digital backbone. And along the way, whoever has privy to that data, or whoever is part of a transaction with you around that data, will have the ability to see their portion of that data. If we start doing this now, what we can then do is build on it incrementally to take some of those upstream processes. So some examples would be, all of us, I think, probably struggle with our owner royalties area. There's a lot of customer service function there where we have owners that are wanting to know, what their wells are producing, what money is due them. And there's a lot of recycle in that area because they have to call in or email or inquire or log into a web portal that's got imperfect information, because that information is something that's gone through several iterations of data capture already. So if we have that data recorded, those molecules recorded to a blockchain, the owner royalty portion is really just a subsection of that. You can take a slice of it, expose it through a web portal, or even today, a lot of people use mobile applications, so that folks can go in and look and see what their properties are producing, how much is due them, when it's going to be coming in. And then you can do further automation of payments and such directly into their bank accounts using blockchain. Another area in the upstream business, I think that this benefits, that the Blockchain for Energy Consortium is building right now, is an integrated joint venture process. So in that area, we are taking, a lot of us are doing joint ventures these days because it's a way of sharing cost and risk across, the different partners on a given field. And what we end up having to do is an operator has to take those costs to drill a well and bill that out to all of the participating partners in that field. And that's a process that has to happen on a monthly basis, and a process that has a lot of detail behind it. And it also leads to reconciliation between us and our non-operating partners, which means that we can bill somebody for those costs, and those costs could be accepted and paid, or they could have an issue or want more detail, and it could not be paid until that issue is resolved. Well, with blockchain, as you can imagine, everybody's looking at the same data. You can have that common shared ledger between you, and at any given moment, you both know where you stand, what's been accepted and paid, what hasn't. Somebody can update the comments about why, what's the reasons it hasn't been paid. And everybody's seeing it real time in that shared web app, but blockchain is powering it. So to me, this is removing a lot of the back and forth of physical invoicing or separate digital invoicing of data. It's giving us that way to more quickly transact business and to have that permanent audit trail that we can always refer back to. And then another area that's really growing these days for most of our companies is the ability to track, along with the oil molecules, what's our ESG standing, or what's our emission standing for different wells or producing assets, right? And so all of that kind of goes part and parcel to capturing oil molecules. At the same time, you should be capturing your emission molecules or your recordation of emissions, so that it can be followed up on, reported on, etc. And when we get into some of these areas where we are a regulated industry and we have regulators that we're reporting to on a continual basis, we can do things with blockchain, like get a special key that would allow regulators to go in and see the information for themselves, so that they can reduce their staffing needs to receive reports and go through reports. Oil companies can reduce their staffing needs because that data is just transparent and recorded and there. And it's something that I think we need to be working toward, not only in the regulatory, but in the statutory area as well. And that's working with governments where we're paying taxes in particular. There's a lot of benefit to, we have the transaction recorded. We can automate that that reporting and payment of taxes to entities. And those entities or those governments, they can have a special key where they could go in and see the totals and audit off of that blockchain. So by doing that, you're reducing that government's need for audit staff, oil companies' needs to answer audits. It gets everybody focused more clearly on what is that core transaction. So upstream, I think, is very ripe because, unlike the downstream, upstream has had the cash over the past, and we haven't really focused wholeheartedly as we are right now on digital. Downstreams had very narrow margins by and far for years now, 30, 40 years. And so they've been forced to get much more efficient in the way that they do business. But we still have some opportunities there. And in the downstream area, the same thing of capturing your molecules. If you start capturing your molecules from refinery to the end customer, whether it's bulk shipments or stuff that gets transformed and packaged along the way, what you now can build is you can build automation around things like your terminal and truck rack and pipeline and inspection company activities that you're relying on them to give you quantity and quality information. And that is something that, today requires a lot of back and forth, a lot of different systems to pull that data, and then a lot of manual effort to get that into your local system to bill customers, make material movements, etc. So by pulling those together, we get a more instant realization of the data, and we can do more automation back into our ERP systems. And on the back office side, which really excites me again, because I'm a back office guy, right? I mean, I'm about accounting here. The other area we do as oil companies, a lot of product exchange accounting. And this is a way of us, again, sharing risk and minimizing investment by exchanging product with each other. But what that requires at the end of the month is that we now have to take those millions of transactions every month and record them into a statement and do some kind of a data swap with each other so that we can automate ticking and tying and reconciling those volumes and money together. Well, if we have a blockchain solution where each of our partners can see that activity real time, what you do is you speed up your ability to address reconciling items. You can bring it into the current month. You don't have to wait to start until 45 days, 60 days later when everybody's got that data swapped. So today we can start working those exceptions, get them cleared even before month end, and we have a running total of where we stand with a partner at any given time. So to me, this is like game-changing activities that can help us to streamline how we approach things, give us access to more real-time information, and where we stand with those partners and in our overall obligations. So
Thanks,
those are just a
Jason.
few things I wanted to highlight.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. That was a very comprehensive setup. So moving to Raquel, and also coming from Chevron, I would like to hear your track and trace concept that Jason have very elaborate established. Bring on the more external perspectives as an operator when you're interacting, for example, with Philip from Oud. So what are the topics or the dimensions you think important?
Thank you. No, Jason portrayed it really well, very detailed. So I want to add a spin out on the operations side and the more technical exposed, in the front line. Some of the things that when I was a production engineer, for example, when you're doing asset integrity, when you're looking for your fields, you want to make sure that you have all the data you can to manage and predict and your predictive maintenance, your productive maintenance, So one of the challenges that we have is to have that data in one place. We know that our equipment, for example, fixed equipment, if we're talking about the pipes and the fixed equipment that we put in our platforms, let's take that as an example. We want to know sometimes when we have, unfortunately, when an incident, we have corrosion studies to do, we need to understand where that pipe came from the mine. We need to understand where the irons start. And if we're able to see all that information in one ledger, that is a distributed ledger that is coming from different sources, but at the same time you can see it in one place, you can start putting together a story about how you're going to manage your predictive and preventive maintenance in the future with much more efficiency. And you can do your equipment management, reduce costs on how you do it, and make sure that you do a fit for purpose project management. So you grab all that information. One of the dreams is that you can have all that information put in a ledger and then grab your AI and start applying AI. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the concept of managing corrosion, which is we will say it's a simple thing, but in reality it's a very complex chemical process that happens especially in our offshore platforms. And we need to be careful on how we manage those equipment to not replace them so often that we lose money, but not to let them go to where we go for the rest of having an incident because of a leakage. So grabbing all that information, putting in an AI, it will give us a lot of options, better options for us as engineers, easy to manage and decide how to manage our equipment, but then also adding it to that future, for example, grabbing the weather forecast for the next 5 years and understanding what are the tides and understanding the barometric pressures that this equipment is going to be going through, understanding the chemistry of the environment that we have out there, putting all that as a picture and managing our assets, it will be is like a dream come true. Some of the other industries that are doing it is, I understand the aviation industry is starting to put more of their information in that track and trace, to try to understand from the beginning where is everything coming from. We see it with Walmart. Walmart is trying to track and trace their the provenance of their letters, to make sure that they put it in our hands and we know really quick who did it, who was wrapping it, where it was planted, how much water was put in that plant. So all that information, we live in the era of information. We live in the era of the data. We want to be able to manage that data safely. And right now, in our industry, as Jason was mentioning, there is a lot of areas that we have to be growing now, because we need to start reporting more and more things about how we produce the goods and the energy that we produce. So we need to be able to be transparent and to be able to open our books, but we also need to do it in a safe way. We need to security of that data. We need to be untampered. We need to find ways to have protection, and having a distributed ledger. The concept of having a distributed ledger is one concept that we need to start embracing more and more. They're having no centralized point of failure. So that is what is going to enable this transformational technology to really work, is to have those, everybody has their own node, everybody has the same information at the same time. There is no tampering, there is no possibility of tampering, there's less probabilities of hammering the information and hacking that information. So this transparency, this new era and this new request for transparency and showing our books needs to be safe. And blockchain is covering many of the aspects of that security that we want to enhance. So those are some of the aspects. And when we're trading information, Jason pointed out, along our value chain, but also we need to understand the information along the value chain of our providers. So once you start adding the externals, our friends from Wood, they will have to show us too what they are doing. And we will have to make sure that we provide to our customers down the road, the ones who buy our energy. We need to show them where we come from, but we need to also Wood and how Wood is helping us build a better world. So when we are managing all that information and we're tracking and tracing all that information, we need to make sure that we have solutions like blockchain like solutions that provide us immutability, that provide us a no central point of failure, that help us build that trust that we're all seeking.
Very good, Raquel. I think everyone pointing now towards Philip. Now, Philip, I have come to know you're a little bit techie person as well. Timing is perfect. Raquel has set the scene. I would like to ask you a little bit about, in your opinion, how blockchain increases the integrity of the data, which is actually the backbone of our AI application. Could you kindly bring us that aspects of the tech side of it, actually implementing these things, how it fits in the bigger picture in the digital transformation? Philip.
Sure. Blockchain, we've talked about the immutability, the digital fingerprint, all the mathematical and cryptography that goes into it. But I want to step back before we talk specifically about the technology and talk about more of the human aspect of why does blockchain change or increase the integrity and quality of the data. And I think first and foremost, it comes down to a transparency and identity. The information you put and publish to the blockchain is linked to your identity, whether it's your company, whether it's you as an individual, and that's set. Even though as the information moves or is accessed, it's clear who was the producer or generator of that information. If I'm putting something linked to my name, my company, Wood, I'm going to think twice before I just, oh, it's last minute and oh, I don't have time to look at that data quite closely. Just go ahead and send it and we'll adjust it later. No, because if I submit it and then send it later, I can't delete it. I have to go back and effectively back it out and put a change in there. Well, that change signals that my data that I'm responsible for was not that good of a quality. So when it's like, oh, well, maybe I'll think twice and maybe I'll spend a little extra time to ensure the reliability of that data. And guess what? Because I'm doing it, I'm probably sure that the other person at Chevron or Exxon or whoever is doing that as well, because their name is linked to that information as well. And so you start to create a virtuous cycle where it's not only the system, maintains the integrity and security of the data, but you get a psychological benefit as well, in terms of, if I know everybody else is taking the time, it creates a positive peer pressure cycle for each individual, for each company, to only put the best quality of data on the blockchain. The blockchain is never going to replace our internal data systems. We're still going to have our databases. We're still going to have our SAPs. We're still going to have our billing systems, Oracle. But what it does is it creates a repository to publish that information so it can be shared, and then once it's shared, we can share it like Raquel and Jason mentioned, in a convenient format. That way, everybody can look at it. At Wood, we have a maintenance group that actually goes around and serves as the maintenance team for different oil and energy companies, or the HSE team as well. So we're putting that information into their systems. And we're a large organization, so we don't always have the benefit of taking knowledge that we know from one project and using it on another. If it's published in a blockchain, then and if you're part of the consortium, which has to be done with blockchain, that gives everybody access to the data and everybody access to the learning and the analysis of that data. And the fact again that it's linked my internal system, but I'm sharing externally, but then everybody can go look at it and I would say extract a much higher level of detail from the system. So that's really my fundamental, as I've thought about it, as I've worked on projects. My conclusion is the technology is great and it does all those things, but it's really the human aspect that is a game changer for the technology.
Philip, thank you so much. Then I would like to now go to Gino just to ask you, as a decentralized capabilities of blockchain has been touted here a lot, but is there any need for let's say, this product ownership? Do you see any kind of role of a regulatory body? Doesn't have to be government. For example, blockchain for energy as a kind of industrial consortium should play a little bit of gatekeeping, or we need to be really evangelist free in the world without no regulation, please,
Yeah, sure. If you're playing around in the blockchain space, you may hear the term DAO thrown around, kind of a decentralized, sort of an autonomous organization, right? So we're not at that stage yet, but blockchain is in many ways a technology and a culture. There is a thinking of some of these terms that you've heard thrown around: decentralization, democratization, and I thought Philip touched on a really important element, which ties into your question, Abul. It really is about individual responsibility in many ways, because when you are putting a piece of data into a shared environment, and there isn't a whole bunch of different undo buttons like we have in Microsoft Office, right? You have to be prepared to sort of stand behind your data, right? The fact that we are working on this together, and you might take some action based on the data that I put out there, it creates a sense of shared responsibility, a sense of community, to use the term that I mentioned earlier, a sense of ecosystem. Now, really easy to say those things, and they occur as maybe kind of blue sky and not capitalist or not about uh, traditional sort of corporate ways of doing things. But blockchain isn't the solution to everything. It just happens to be, in my personal opinion and my professional opinion, the solution to a lot of the challenges, or a solution to a lot of the challenges that the industry is faced with. So, Abul, to the point of responsibility and the specific part of your question around regulators, regulators absolutely have a role to play. What that role is today is they're probably just as confused, if not more confused, as many of the folks who are attending this conference. It is early days, and so part of the mission of the consortium isn't just to operationalize this stuff and to do it and get it working and to give us things to experiment with and sandboxes and forums to test around with. Yes, we do all of that stuff, but one of the key pillars of our mission is to facilitate learning. Philip mentioned it as well, that they are looking for learning opportunities within Wood to try and understand how to engage with this technology. I know with from my conversations with Raquel and with Jason that Chevron and ExxonMobil respectively are doing the same thing. This is not a macro that you're going to run on your spreadsheet that all of a sudden is going to make you more efficient. Blockchain is a different way of doing things. And that different way of doing things has a functionality piece where we need our subject matter experts, and we need accountants, and we need engineers and technical specialists for that. But it also has this sort of cultural responsibility, kind of decentralized architectural stuff that is in the background, but it has very little ultimately to do with the functionality, right? It just enables it. It just makes sure that the way that we're doing this new functionality is the new way. It is not just a fancier user interface on the way that we've always been doing things. So at Blockchain for Energy, we recognize again that this is a journey. We recognize that this is early days, and our commitment and our goal to the industry, or commitment to the industry and our goal for the industry, is that we're here for the long haul. We're here to help everyone who wants to be part of the ecosystem and accept some of that shared responsibility that Philip was mentioning, right? We're happy to help guide and shepherd and drive the journey and facilitate the learning that we all need to do from one another. Ultimately, the regulators will step in and they will say, hey, we want you to use black ink for this and blue ink for that. And if you don't, you get fined, 12 cents or what have you, right? They'll come and they'll do that. But we have taken the position that we would rather not wait for them to dictate to us. We would rather invite companies to our consortium and build a consortium that says we're going to take the bull by the horns, we're going to experiment, and we're going to build those elements and those pieces that we can. And when the regulators are ready, they'll combine, they'll say, oh, look at that interesting thing that you built, and you've got some folks that are already using it. 25%, 50%, 13% of the industry is already doing this way. Well, how about we just start there? In the year 20XX, right? We're just going to have that be the first wave of regulation, and then we'll figure it out from there, right? That's what we are striving to accomplish and to drive and to make happen at Blockchain for Energy.
Thanks a lot, Gino. That was a really good setup. I will just move to Raquel now. If you have so many questions I had to ask, time is running out. But let's try about Raquel. Could you kindly address, as we are exposing our cherished data to our partners, to our regulator, whoever, through blockchain, the privacy, the data privacy, and also comes along with the cybersecurity. We are exposing our strategic asset, let's put it this way. How you think about it? Let's start with Raquel, and I'll take a round to all of you on this topic.
Thank you. Yes, this is a good question, because that's the key right now is managing all the data, is how do we secure it? One of the things that the aspects that blockchain offers is that distributed ledger. Is the fact that everybody has a node and all the information is distributed. This information, this technology is not really that new. This was created almost 40 years ago. The idea of having distributed ledgers. The problem is we didn't have the technology. We didn't have the hardware to follow on that. Right now we have the hardware, and it's still a little bit slower, but it's evolving so fast. But the intention is that there is no one central point of failure, and that's where we're relying on. Well, that's the aspect that we're seeing, that it will help us secure the data. It's like you will see the same thing that I see. We participate both in the same blockchain. We can see the data, but I can let you see what I want you to see, and you can let me see what you want me to see from your side. That's one of the other aspects, is that privacy. We can share exactly what we need to share. So I always go to the example, the small example of your driver's license. The number of your driver's license and the date of birth and your picture. This is all contained in the same card. So when you show your card, you have to show all the information at the same time. But if somebody just needs your number, the number of your driver's license, they don't need to see everything else. With blockchain will allow you to that. But right now, the system that we have doesn't allow you to privately share only what you need. So that's one of the things that we need to keep in mind, is that security of our privacy and the security of our data. Blockchain can enable those.
Very good. So, Philip, any comment from Ud's perspective, as you are providing a lot of
Yes.
technologies for the, yeah.
One of the things I find interesting too, in terms of, we run into situations where it's maybe we're wanting to do something new, and we need a large data set. So we've run into situations where we've gone to one customer and said, would you share this? And they said, well, we'll share it if this other company over here shares it. And we go to that company and they say, oh, we'll share it if this other company over here shares it, but no one wants to be first. Blockchain eliminates that, because you can publish your data, you have the smart contract, that data is encrypted, and the other person can see that it's shared. No one can touch it. So if the other person that you claim would share doesn't, the data is locked away forever. But you finally have the ability to prove you've submitted it. Another company come in and see they submitted it, but know that it has not been opened, and then they can finally submit it. So now you have the possibility to see without expose. Like Raquel said, you can show that it's there, but you have mathematical guarantees that it cannot be unlocked until you say company B or C shares theirs. So that is a perfect opportunity for the smart contracts for that type of ability, is to allow and then you can even make the smart contract, I'll let everybody see it, or maybe I'll only let one person see it. You have so much more flexibility with the sharing of that data and the capabilities, because you have the trust in technology itself.
Thank you so much. I'll go back to Jason now. When it comes in the smart contract and the cybersecurity data privacy, I was just thinking aloud here about when energy majors interact internationally, digital maturity. This is for me state of art. How do you think, from Exxon's point of view, you guys operate all over the globe? Is there any disparity among the digital maturity of the country or the organizations, where we really want to make this process very transparent, because it's everybody's benefit? Any sheds of light on that topic, Jason?
Well, when it comes to working internationally, I think one of the biggest challenges that we often face is the data privacy laws, right? And so when we want to do business in a given country, we may have to, one, go in and learn what those data privacy laws for that area are and make sure we have that encoded. But the other thing is, we do run into countries that will express a sovereign right over data, and they want data stored within a country. And one thing about blockchain is distributed. So when it's distributed, you can arrange to have a node of that blockchain within that country if that's a requirement, so that that data does reside there and that country's needs are met along those guidelines. So, and when we're talking about security in general, one thing I do like to point out to folks, because many people, when they're first coming to blockchain, they've heard about Bitcoin, they've heard about blockchain related to Bitcoin. One thing that we're looking at as an industry, the majority of the blockchain builds we will do will be on private permissioned blockchains, meaning that we know who's participating in those blockchains. So that right there goes a long distance toward securing data and making sure that it's not open to general public, right? But then the blockchain technology itself, as Philip was alluding to, and Raquel as well, we have the ability to build that blockchain and code in the rules so that people can only see the data that they should be privy to in a given transaction. It's not open to everybody. And even, me as ExxonMobil, if I'm participating in a blockchain and Chevron's participating and Chevron's got business with another oil company that I'm not privy to, I don't see any of that. So it's locked away and only Chevron and their partner can see that. Now, again, I did mention earlier, you probably want to think ahead of time in some regulated industries about whether you want to provide special keys for regulators so that they can see more complete picture. And as we go forward, that'll be, certainly something that we explore as well. But the fact that, as Raquel mentioned, we've got distributed data that can be recovered. It's never lost. It's never downtime. And the fact that it is distributed on these different nodes, we've got the ability to really grow this in an international way and meet a lot of the requirements that we have internationally. So I say that, blockchain from an international standpoint is excellent. And I think what surprises me is there's some relatively small countries that have made a very concerted effort in blockchain to handle a lot of their government matters or to boost the technology so that their country has revenue coming in from a development standpoint. And it amazes me every day. Blockchain is democracy at the root. So that's one thing that I would say on how we'll use it internationally.
No, I think that is very, very true. I think we just left with 5 minutes. Cannot imagine, almost an hour is gone. Time is flying. I'm going to start with Gino. So let's use the last few minutes for each of you go. So Gino, so I was thinking of a kind of rapid firing session, the last few minutes. So if you want to recommend one thing to do with the blockchain to propel oil and gas industry forward in our digital ambition, what it would be, from your perspective, because you interact with a lot of operators and many players. Please.
Yeah, so my number one recommendation would be not to wait. There is such again, a behavioral learning, cultural change management side to this technology that if you say, oh, well, it's very young, I'm going to stay on the sidelines, and then 3 years from now when it's ready, or 5 years from now when it's ready, I'll grab it then. This isn't a spreadsheet. You're not just going to grab it and start working on it on your desktop. All that's going to happen is you are going to start your journey, which is going to have all the behavioral and learning and understanding and competency components. And you're going to have to take that entire journey, and then you'll finally start getting up your value curve, right? Why not start now, get your learnings, get your competencies, get to wrestle with and understand some of the behavioral and cultural elements. And guess what? You can actually influence right now some of those outcomes and some of that path. And so you start your journey now. And by the time you're thinking 3 years, 5 years, 18 months, whatever it is, you're actually already starting to go up that value curve, right? So there's no escaping, the front end of this, because it is a new way, a different way of doing business, in my opinion. So my advice to anybody in this in our audience, whether they be operators or other types of organizations, is don't wait. Get started in some way, shape, or form. Pick one person, get a small task force, join a consortium, start a work group, start a knitting group, whatever, right? Just get started.
Thanks a lot, Gino. So on behalf of the operator side, Raquel, some wise words regarding the topics Gino has mentioned.
Education. Learn. There is a lot of myth around blockchain. Educate yourself. It is coming. It is growing outside the industry. And if we want to really get into the wave, we need to get into the wave educating ourselves. Our management needs to understand that it's not something that is going to produce all the millions of dollars that they imagine tomorrow, but it's there. The benefits are there. The benefits, the intangible benefits are there. And we just need to start educating ourselves a little bit more and more, because this is not Bitcoin. It's an enabler. This is a technology that it goes in the backbone and help us enable other technologies. So it needs to be part of our strategy right now to see it in the future. So that's why
Thank you,
we need to start stepping in right now. Thank you.
Raquel. Then Philip, from Wood side, or let's say from the other side of the fence, please, your comments.
Yes, my would be the great thing about blockchain is that it's better when it's done with more people, because the whole point is sharing. And so if you're looking to try to test the waters, find a group of people, use the consortium approach to join and start learning together, because blockchain is only going to be beneficial if a lot of different, and the more companies that do it, the more value you get from it. So don't try to do it all yourself. You don't have to bear all the cost. You don't have to do it yourself. That's a perfect opportunity to work within an industry to develop what's needed to move it forward.
Thank you so much. I think the 2 points I pick is a time pressed issue. We need to get going now and together, collaborate within an ecosystem. We really sad to say time is out for us. Thank you so much, all of you calling here today. And I hope the audience have found some interesting insights, and a blockchain is here to stay. So we better get going. Back to you guys.